cinematic intro, just a bunch of dead air in the beginning is what it usually is, and then once once they make the YouTube link, I'll be able to share it. It's up. Okay, cool.
Perfect.
I'll just share this on Twitter. We'll just do it as planned with the chat instead of people chiming in. But I do have a couple questions from people in my Telegram. So if nobody gives any good questions, I could use those. They were pretty good.
All right, sounds good.
What's going on here? And I worked so hard on the thumbnail. I worked so hard on everything. It's all right. all that time I spent at work playing on Canva, it's all out the window. But there we go. I tweeted it. Hopefully, so I got YouTube, Twitter Blue,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like the same thing as Twitter, except now you have to click multiple times to send a tweet. It's so annoying.
Oh yeah, that is dumb.
All right, so this is good to go. I'm gonna bring the chat in. Finn, you know why Finn's here? He wants to make sure he gets the audio, but I figured out I could download the audio and just send it to you. And he's probably really happy that the Reece bot is not going to get this out before he does.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, Reece is going to run interference on the satellite dish on top of your house, and he'll get it out. He'll get it out before you. But America's worst chef. I'm a top 5 chef in my zip code, I would say. I could be a coach on one of those shows, but I don't follow recipes. I just wing it. It's great. The secret is to use cast iron for everything. Mm-hmm. So, all right, we're going to talk about COSMWASM with Reece, and this is supposed to be a Twitter space. Got rugged. This is the second time I've had to do it this way. So, Reece, I appreciate you being flexible. I made a bunch of videos today, so I'm wearing the same outfit in like 4 videos in a row. That's okay. We'll survive. And it's a bear market outfit issue, I guess. So why don't you just quickly just talk about what you do for Juno now that you're full-time Juno, and then we'll get some real basic background on smart contracts, COSMWASM, and then some specifics on COSMWASM, IBC, and Cosmos. That sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great. So for Juno, I'm the lead developer over here. I lead upgrades, security patches, anything related to Juno itself. And then also I'm not kind of doing more of like a developer relations role. So I'm making sure that our developers have good tooling, and that with that, we are going to be able to, build great products out with COSMWASM on the chain and other things like that. So really excited. You do know there is some feedback. I don't know if that's on my side. I think it's on your side, though.
Let me see. That might be. This is what time my neighbor mows his grass, so I'm going to just close my window.
Got it.
Is that any better or no?
Much better.
All right. Yes.
Yeah. Sounds like a hair buzzer. I was like,
yeah, I have and he's not even near my house, but he has like professional grade landscaping equipment, and he'll just do that for like 4 or 5 hours in a day. He like the whole block. Nobody asks him to do it. Finn will edit this out. Don't worry, everybody. Finn will be up all night, West Coast time, editing this out. But the real reason I like doing these spaces, because a lot of topics in crypto are very mysterious for people, even for me. And I've been like, I would say like 6 or 7 years in crypto. A lot of terms become buzzwords. We use them all the time, have no idea really what they mean. Or even if we know what they mean, we can't explain it to anybody else. And that's a big hang up in crypto for onboarding people. So COSMWASM is the topic. We'll talk about what the hell is it, but how about just a working definition for smart contract, right?
Yep. So COSMWASM is our smart contract platform, but again, like you said, we hear these words are stated COSMWASM, DAOs, these, like no one really knows what it is. It's just kind of there. So A smart contract platform is essentially allowing us to add features during runtime of a chain. What does this mean, from a application standpoint? Back in the day, you had floppy disk, you had to put one in, load it, you may have to take it out, put another one in. That's kind of what COSMWASM is where you're able to load in that floppy disk and run it. Now the thing is like a chain upgrade would be like a Windows update where you've got to restart the machine has to stop, your programs break, all this stuff can happen. So COSMWASM allows for us, to be inputting these applications at runtime. You can go play your game, you can pull it out, you can add more in, you can change it out as needed with other things. And so we're able to do that without interfering with the chain. And so anyone on Juno, as well as other permissionless networks, can just launch any application, any idea within the blockchain area.
So are there chains that literally have to stop and restart for smart contracts being uploaded, or only for major chain upgrades?
Only chain upgrades. So there are two ways to add features to a chain, either one with COSMWASM or two, a chain upgrade. And so there are certain things that do not need to be on chain because that would take a lot of time, but we can still do that with COSMWASM and allow people to build up their own applications there.
Got it. All right. So even when I go to the COSMWASM website, it's a little vague. It's almost like you're expected to know what it is. And all I got from the website was, high security, a very secure multi-chain smart contract platform supporting IBC, which is important for Cosmos people, because the whole reason why most of us are here is because we love the interoperability. We have some app chains where there's only one application on a single blockchain. The blockchain can be optimized for that, but you still want to be able to move tokens from place to place. Otherwise, it's not that useful unless you're going direct from a centralized exchange. So COSMWASM would be an alternative to what exactly? Like, what was before COSMWASM?
Before COSMWASM, you would have to run your own chain. You would have to build your application out in a less secure language that could have memory errors where like the application crashes, and that could lead to like lost funds or something like this. So you have to be very careful with that. And COSMWASM takes all that difficulty away, and it makes it so you can't really write bugs in the sense that it's going to crash, but you can write logic bugs. So it's a lot easier to test and to ensure like, hey, my logic is right. Like I'm not sending like the entire balance over to someone and just making those checks rather than, if I call this function, will it crash out my contract and crash the chain? That security is built in. And so it's great for new developers to come in because you're not going to break things. And it's great for, even senior developers where we don't have to think through all of these minute details that we have to think whenever we're building an application out on the SDK layer.
All right. So those are the main problems that it solves. Which chains have COSMWASM off the top of your head? It's like what, 8 or 10 of them? Something like that?
I believe it's upwards of 50 now. There's a lot of chains.
It's that many. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the big ones off the top of my head, from a permissionless standpoint, is Juno Network, Archway in the future, as well as Neutron. These will be permissionless. Anyone can upload a contract at any time, and the chain will not say. From a permission standpoint, which is the chain has to approve you to upload your contract. This would be Stargaze, Osmosis, and those are the ones off the top of my head. And then there's also other versions, which is an older version of COSMWASM on the Terra, both Lunk as well as Terra 2, and then Secret Network for secret contracts. So those are the main players right now in the COSMWASM space.
Got it. All right. As a dev, what's attractive, whether it's a new dev or experienced dev, what's attractive to them using using COSMWASM rather than going to use Solidity, right? Or something like that? Would that be the equivalent in the other ecosystem?
Yeah, that would be the other, smart contract platforms. The thing with Solidity is that it's its own language that was built just for smart contracts. So even if you know all other basic like Web 2 languages that you would use in like Facebook or Google or wherever, like all these engineers, they are beginning to use Rust. Rust is now coming, which is the base layer for COSMWASM. So this is a programming language that is now in the Linux kernel, which means that basically every single server in like the entire world is now going to be running Rust. So we have Rust engineers. It's also going into Windows. So every single computer basically in the entire world eventually will be on Rust. And so we are building the application framework. It is extremely safe there. And so we have more developers than what there will be Solidity developers. We're just very early as we begin to onboard all these tools. And that's something I'm working towards to make sure that other developers that are maybe from Google, Facebook, or just, a hobby programmer will already have the understanding of the language and can just hook into the APIs essentially. So just hook into what we offer to build out those applications on the blockchain.
I've seen a lot of introductory programming courses online. Even when I was in college, Rust is never something you see as like a first option for someone. Usually it's, Python. I did what I do, C plus, HTML, JavaScript, long time ago, but now it seems to like Python, um, SQL,
Yeah, that's a
little
language
bit
for like
different.
store. Yeah.
So how does someone get their feet wet with Rust? Or is it usually like you learn a different language that's maybe a little more common and then it's an easy crossover into Rust?
Yeah. So if you did C++, you can think of Rust like take C++ and take out all the headache with crashes and things like this, and Rust abstracts all that away from you. So it gives you a very powerful framework where you can write, low level code very quickly. It's almost the same speed as C. It's like, I think, a 10% difference, which is like the base layer language. Like every language builds off of that. And so you get this, a lot of good features come with Rust. And so most developers should not start out with Rust like 100%. You should learn Python. You should learn, basic website, JavaScript, things like that. But Rust is a very powerful language for as you want to become like, a multiverse engineer where you're building in multiple languages. Rust is definitely going to be in your tool belt, and it is drastically growing very quickly because of the great features that it offers. And COSMWASM is at the front of that.
Got it. Okay. All right. That's interesting. Yeah. Cause I've taken, like I said, either C plus or C plus plus, did HTML and JavaScript, CSS, right, for websites. But then I did take Python courses as well. And it, like Rust doesn't even come up. So that's interesting. Maybe I'll have to go out of my way and look and see if I could dabble in Rust if I have some time to do that kind of as like a hobby on the side. It's pretty interesting.
Rust is quite confusing because it is requiring you to be safe in the way that it is designed. There are some things that are not common in other languages. So like the way that variables are passed, typically if I run a variable, like I set a variable, name equals Reece, and then I go through later and I say name equals Joe, you've got to specify these certain things and you have to pass them in different ways. And so there's these like weird kind of quirks of it, but it makes it a very safe language. And it's not that big of a barrier to overcome relative to creating an entirely new programming language like Solidity and then requiring developers to learn all of that. Who knows what other issues come up because it is specifically Web3. And so the fact that other, large institutions are incorporating Rust shows that there is a developer ecosystem there. It is extremely powerful, and that's who we're trying to capture on both Juno as well as the COSMWASM.
Perfect. No, I mean it sounds good for Cosmos people that are just you know looking 5 years, 10 years down the road, right?
Mhm.
And are there other ecosystems using Rust, or is it mainly Cosmos and others using other stuff?
There is another, I think there may be either one or two. One is called Move, and then there was one called like it was like Island or something. So I'm not sure, but CosmWasm is like the top one as far as I know. I know Move's got some things, but it's basically like building a programming language on top of Rust. So you run into the same problems as Solidity is going to have, where you've got to still learn this like extra language on top of your current language that you would have already known. So just let's teach you the base language and build off of that.
So as a developer, you would say Cosmos is a really exciting place to be because they're going to be at the forefront of this, you know, onboarding, let's say, just because of the base language.
Yeah, I think that's definitely as well as the adoption. Every single chain on Cosmos can currently accept CosmWasm. It's just a matter of if the core team wants to or not, and they can decide what format they want that in a permissionless or permission system. So, again, like 52 chains are currently using it, and that'll continue to grow as more chains come online. So it's very exciting.
All right. Now, that's really good info, even for someone like me to hear what it's like behind the scenes, right? Like behind the computer monitor,
Mhm.
what's going on. Sometimes I do try to wonder, like, oh, how is all this happening, or why is this not happening? But from a user perspective, I go on to either Wind or Stargaze or whatever, am I ever going to know COSMWASM is being leveraged? Are there some features that just wouldn't exist on Ethereum or Polkadot? How how is that looking or feeling to the end user?
So as the user, you should not notice any difference. You should have no idea how it works. It just works. And so like the thing is like Stargaze could be built entirely on the block, like on the SDK side with normal no smart contracts. The thing is it takes a lot more work. There's a lot more testing that needs to be done. You need a different kind of engineer. That's a Golang engineer, so it's a different language. You've got a lot more edge cases and things you have to think through. So as a user, you shouldn't know, but the speed of development that a small developer team can have, like even just two, can build great applications and not have to build their own chain. And we see this with like again, Wind, Raccoon Bet, Gelato. These are able to build on Juno network using COSMWASM directly, and they don't have to run any infrastructure other than making sure that their website is up and that their contracts are deployed. And we handle everything else for them.
All right. I mean, it sounds like it might tip the scales then back to from app chains to kind of all-purpose platforms like Juno, right? It's less incentive, you're saying, or maybe a little bit more work up front if you want to launch your own chain in combination with the economics of it as well, right?
Yeah, I think it really depends on what you're trying to do. Like Juno is meant to be, you've got an idea. Let's get you from idea to production as quickly as possible. So that means that we're going to have a large amount of different developers that come in with either games or DeFi or just broad ideas, and so that's important to cater to. Other networks like Neutron may try to get more high volume applications, such as say like Astroport and things like that, where they want to have while they are permissionless, they want to get like the top of the top for their applications. The thing is that because of IBC in partnership with COSMWASM, is that we can connect with other chains such as Archway and Neutron, as well as permission chains like Osmosis to perform cross-chain COSMWASM executions across all the place, and it's like a spider web of applications that we can build then as we are beginning to scale this out with great applications like interchain accounts and Polytone from the DAO team. So that stuff's really exciting.
Okay, my next question is about interchain accounts actually, and I do have a question about Polytone from Ambito actually. So, how do interchain accounts leverage COSMWASM exactly, or are they unrelated? They're
Yeah. So the short answer is that they're there, but they do not work with smart contracts. This is a
okay.
major limitation of interchain accounts, and that is the entire reason that Zeke over at DAO had to create Polytone. Polytone wasn't created just as a nice to have; it was created because we needed that to be able to fully leverage what interchain accounts should have been initially.
Okay. I don't know what Polytone is. Would you
Mhm.
be able to give a quick backstory as to what that is, what it does?
So Polytone is it allows you to have an account on another chain controlled by your source chain. So you can have an account on Juno, you have your normal wallet, and you can execute some action on the other chain and get a response back. And so Polytone is just what makes that a seamless execution there. So you can have a DAO on Juno or an organization on Juno, and they can perform some action, say on Stride or something like that, in a single click and get a response back, make sure that all of that went through correctly, and if so, then do some other action on your behalf that you approved first. So it's just really powerful in actually making what IBC should be and putting that into production now through COSMWASM.
So, would you say Polytone is a precursor to interchain accounts or something that complements it
It is something on top of interchain accounts. If
on top?
interchain accounts did not have Polytone, there would be no smart contract interchain accounts. Like it would be very base level stuff that essentially no one would be able to use. So it really makes interchain accounts what it should have been.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna actually Tank had a question. Oh, here it is. It says, what projects are building within Juno that you know of that will use the Juno token, and if so, how will it be used to bring back value to stakeholders? Any info on that?
So I'm not sure on projects that are directly using Juno. My focus is more give developers the tools and then they will build it. So that would be more for someone else on the team, Core One, that would handle that. as well as like the growth DAO. My focus is I got to focus on developer applications and just allowing them to even get to market so they even have that opportunity to use Juno token or their own token. I think it makes sense to use the base token. Not everyone needs their own token, but again, it depends on your specific application needs.
All right. By the way, if anyone in the chat has questions, feel free to type them out and I'll read them as we go along. I have a question from Ambito, and actually his first question was the Polytone question. His second one is, what will ICA functionality look like if the IBC eco can't decide on a canonical standard?
That's what Polytone is meant to be. It's meant to
Okay.
be that standard because it's going to be free, open source, no licensing. Anyone can use it. And the best part is it's COSMWASM. So as long as your chain has COSMWASM, you can fully leverage that. Everyone will be on the same standard. Now, you may want to add extra features. And the thing is that you just migrate the contracts via the account that uploaded them, whether that be a DAO or governance itself. And that standard can then be pushed across all of Cosmos. To do that with a chain, would take months, if not upwards of a year, to get that same standard to be pushed out across chains that need to do upgrades. And some would never do it. And so you'll never be able to use full interchain accounts. So it's very exciting. Polytone brings that. And if someone has a better implementation, we can migrate to that as these ideas come through.
I have a question. Does any of this tech, it sounds like a lot of this stuff is built for and by the ecosystem, whether it be, Ethan, Jay, Zeke, whoever it is. Can anybody use this, or is this going to be somehow protected or monetized for the ecosystem? Or will this just be used to kind of bring in just the best developers because there's an edge in the tech?
Yeah, so anyone can build on it. Anyone can use it. It's for permissionless areas like, again, Juno, Archway, and Neutron. So anyone can build any idea that they have without any permission needed. And so COSMWASM enables that feature, and having multiple chains be able to use it. You don't have to be, you don't have to have a single chain that you like. Once you launch on Juno, you can't go anywhere else. No, the thing is that you can launch on Juno. You can then go launch on these other areas, connect all of them, or you can just go launch on a single one. So it depends on what you need, but it's very flexible in that aspect where you're not just stuck to one chain. So that's really exciting for developers.
All right. I think Tank had a follow-up question there.
Yep.
Are you helping anyone specifically build any product? I guess what you're saying is all these projects have their own token.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just Juno. I see it everywhere. Do you know of any projects that are building on Juno without a token using Juno as the base, either money, incentives, or whatever the case might be? Or is that just not your area?
That's not my area, but I believe Swift Protocol will be accepting Juno. And so I believe that they will allow it and then allow to swap it over to like USDC or, Atom. But, the way that we're going to definitely be accruing value is increasing gas fees drastically as well. They are way too low. Cosmos is way too low. So we're looking at, increasing gas fees. We're at an all-time high in gas fees. And so the thing is that if we, 10, 20x these fees, like this will eventually become a substantial thing, but we need to actually work to increase that. So that was another thing in past upgrades where, let's do that. Wolf's been thinking through things on the side of like tokenomics and value incentives and things like that. So right now, I think everyone wants their token, and we're not only going to see that on Juno, but you're going to see that on other networks as well. And I think that having areas where we can use native tokens, such as an NFT marketplace, that's something that I am very interested in, like building out just for fun, and allow them to use native token. And if they decide that, allow like automatic swapping through Windex, for example, to the token that they want to receive. So maybe you want to receive Atom, but I have Juno. I should be able to pay in Juno, automatically swap it to Atom. And if that is the correct exchange rate, send that to you and I receive the NFT, and that abstracts away all of the UX on that aspect there. So that's something I'm thinking through.
That definitely makes sense, because then the platform itself can accept multiple currencies. But when you're saying when you list your NFT, you would check a box. I want to get paid in this, and it would just Wind will do the job, right? That'll be Wind's. No one will see it.
Correct. And so it's abstracting away different currencies and allowing you to just use Juno or just use like native USDC. And maybe you want to receive Juno, and so we can have those automatic swaps that that will give pool fees as well as use the currency that you want and abstract away difficulties. And things with like IBC hooks and some other modules that we have, we'll be able to also auto swap with osmosis. And so using Polytone with that, we'll be able to move those over, which is so awesome. We're greatly going to be able to reduce the user experience overhead that we currently have in Cosmos because of COSMWASM and the speed at which we can develop with that.
All right. Question from Kerberos here. Is Polytone going to be integrated to DAO?
So I believe it is already incorporated in DAO testnet. I believe they staked some osmosis on osmosis testnet from the Juno testnet. So it'll work with any DAO that's already up. I would assume you have to do a migration, but yes, that is definitely possible. And it has worked. And Noah has that on his timeline on Twitter.
So in other words, a DAO is going to be able to hold a treasury and multiple tokens and then perform actions through governance on the other chains.
Yep. So you could stake on another chain. You can vote on governance on the other chain. You could buy NFTs on Stargaze on your Juno DAO, and then in another transaction, like send those back over to Juno with the ICS 721 protocol. So then you can get those onto Juno and then move them. And so, it definitely opens up true IBC capabilities because of COSMWASM.
It sounds like there's just going to be no other ecosystem that could replicate this without connecting to IBC somehow.
COSMWASM, I mean, the main feature of it is the fact that we have IBC and we can build these things on top of it, where to build up another language at this point to try to take over COSMWASM, there's no real incentive to, because it's already there. And the issues that are found in COSMWASM, okay, just change your contract, or we can upstream those to later versions of COSMWASM and upgrade the chain. So yeah, it's been moving quickly. A lot of the features are getting put in, and if it can't be put in, it can be done on the contract side most of the time, such as we've seen with Polytone.
Got it. All right, here's another one from the crowd. Did we cover differences between Solidity contracts and COSMWASM? Kind of, right? How would you answer that specific question?
Yeah, so Solidity is its own custom language, so you have to learn a new language. COSMWASM is already built on a language developers know, which is Rust, and you just hook into like the functions and API calls that you would typically have and use those features, and that is built on the Juno chain. Safety is there. It is also a lot more readable, and you get all the benefits of Cosmos along with that.
All right. I got a fun one here from somebody in my Telegram, but they didn't put their name. Have you ever played Space Station 13?
I don't believe I have.
Okay, so then the follow-up question is not going to be that interesting to the chat here, but it says, if so, name your top 3 in-game job positions that you enjoyed the most.
Yeah, I did not play this game. The only games I ever played was Minecraft and
PokerStars. Raccoon Bet.
I've done a bit of Raccoon Bet. And then recently I got into Hitman 3. So those are like all the games from like age 12 till now 21. So like that's all I've played is like those 3.
Wow. Yeah, I think my first game was Duck Hunt, and then I think NHL Hockey 96, and then some Zelda games, and then straight into casinos.
Yeah, casinos are the best.
Oh my God, dude. I miss it so much. One summer I just spent like 2 months in Florida, and I went to the Hard Rock probably like 4 times a week. It was the greatest thing ever. I was eating like 80% of my meals in the casino. So much fun. I guess DeFi definitely attracts that kind of person because there's so much upside, and it's very easy to ignore the downside, where it's like, well, I'm going to win eventually, right?
What downside? It's all upside.
It's starting from right now. Who's going to play? Look, Tank is going to play Diablo 4. There we go. I don't know what else can we cover. What else do you think Juno community just wants to hear? There's I would say a starving Juno community out there. Getting sidetracked a little bit because there's not that much exciting stuff right in front of us, And I'm still like a Juno bag holder. It's just how it's going to be for quite some time. And I don't know. What else do you think the end users or even just like the passive stakers would want to hear about what's going on at Juno?
Yep. So one thing that me and Jake are now working on is a society of, it'll be a DAO, an organization that will house all developers from Juno as well as like any COSMWASM developer. And we're going to have a group together to allow for like a shared learning environment, mentorship, networking, helping give opportunities for projects that either we want built or others want built, and to have a group that can work on these different things and have direct mentorship to people that know what they're talking about, such as Jake and Akez and Noah, as well as like Jack Samplin. And so this is important where we have a developer DAO to bring these new features where maybe you don't know entirely how to get started on COSMWASM. We'll help you with that, and you can come in and we can have mentors with those things and allow for a more vibrant ecosystem of applications being built on not only Juno but other networks as well.
Yeah, I've thought about trying to build like an actual education platform. It's almost like you don't even know where to start in Cosmos, but to have like the mentorship, right? That's like a lot different than an education platform where you're just kind of doing things at your leisure, all by yourself. Maybe you get some feedback that's automated, stuff like that. But with an actual mentorship, right? You know, if you can get like 5 or 6 people to just once a week do like a group mentorship program, you guys can run 6-week courses, almost like a boot camp with the actual people who are the movers and the shakers of the ecosystem.
Yeah, so we've got different roles. Like Jake will be still doing like code and chills, where he goes on and he shows you how to build a specific application that he wants to build, whether that be with NFTs or something DeFi in the future, games, things like that. So he's going to focus on, I've got an idea here. I'm going to show you me doing it. And then I want to come in as a teacher and do like mini cohorts and teach you from, hey, I don't even really know a programming language. How do I get started in this? To I just launched a contract on chain and have a front end and allow users to do that. So that's something I'm interested in. We're still, we just got the Discord up. I just finished that up last night. So we'll begin to work more on like the marketing side as well as what we plan to do specifically. And then with that mentorship, be able to fund those questions and ideas into our documentation for future individuals that maybe are not in the mentorship group yet, but just want to kind of look. And then we'll have AI and things go through all of that stuff and make it a super simple interface where, how do I do this in COSMWASM? Or I want to do some function. How can I do that? And it'll bring up, hey, you should use COSMWASM. Here's an example. So these are all things we're thinking through. We want Juno to be the area that you come to learn documentation, and then to come, launch the initial version of your project, grow it up, and begin to then scale on the interchain. And so that's what we're looking to do. And we need more great developers to do that. And that's where our focus is.
Do you think that a lot of the developers are spread out across Cosmos rather than concentrated on a few chains?
I would say so, because everyone wants to kind of do it their way. And
Yeah.
by doing it their way, they launch a new token or they launch a new chain.
What a
They then
Freudian slip that was.
Yeah, they launch a new chain, then they launch a new token, and then they decide that we're going to take COSMWASM and we're going to change this about it. And then by the end of it, nothing matters because no one's going to be able to use it because it's so different from everyone else. So we want to give this is a baseline of how to do it. And then from there, you can expand out to other ecosystems with their custom features and things like that.
All right. How about this question here? What's the tech in the whole of Cosmos that gets you excited the most? Or exited? Which is going to make you exit? Excited.
From the excited standpoint, I like working on the infrastructure aspect. So Cosmos is very behind in like even average infrastructure. So scaling up nodes that contracts are deployed on and the storage mechanisms behind that stuff excites me. And I want to build, faster block times, not for the sake of, oh, we have faster block times, but safe, faster block times that actually can make a difference, because we don't need 6-second blocks. Like there's different applications that are able to be built at faster block times. So that's kind of what I'm excited for is the lower level stuff. Like IBC is great. I've not had as much time to go into like IBCing and relaying and stuff, but these are areas that I definitely want to go into. But right now, infrastructure has my focus, and building up toolings for infrastructure is really important.
How about this one? Main sources of revenue. It's probably related to the gas fee change that you were talking about, right?
Yep. So right now our revenue is entirely gas fee driven, but then we also have the communications DAO, which does investments and things like that. So that will bring in some other revenue, such as the DAO token, and then other investments that will be announced soon, as well as past ones through that DAO.
Tank, repeat what you said. That's kind of what I was trying to ask. What you mean? What his response was to the last question? Yeah, it's hard though with these layer one tokens. We're finding out in the bear market, like, are they money? Are they incentive tokens? Are they to secure the chain? Are they validator reward tokens? They have to do, and they're governance tokens too. So they have to do all these different things, all the while massively fluctuating in price. It's really, really difficult. It's really, everyone's talking about tokenomics now on every chain.
Yeah, I think that here's the way that I look at it is right now is the time to think through tokenomics, but we should not be changing them until the bull market because a lot of people just want like burn the tokens. And I'm like, you weren't saying this in the bull market. Why are you
Yeah.
saying it now? Well, it's better. If it was better, you'd have been saying it in the bull market. So I think it's
I think,
important to like,
yeah.
yeah,
What
piece
are you
this
going to
away.
burn? You're going to burn to merely shut off inflation or burn the tokens that have not yet been emitted into the ecosystem. That doesn't immediately solve the problem of how many tokens are already in circulation. No one's going to volunteer to be the first one to burn their tokens. That's not happening. Um, and burning tokens, it sounds good, but once NFT projects start doing this, I feel like it's like a white flag, and they have a fixed supply that they can't inflate, right? So I don't know. The burning is tough, and a lot of tokens are not even in circulation anyway, right? They're not being sold, right? Either they're in a community pool, they're staked forever. Some people just abandon their stake tokens. It's really tough. It's really tough. I mean, he's saying start with the community pool. I would say use the
Burn
community
it.
pool more for protocol own liquidity and turn off the excessive incentives maybe on certain pools. But again,
Yeah.
I don't know if that changes how people treat the tokens that are already in circulation. I don't know, man.
We should definitely be spending more of the community pool, I think, even on more well, I guess, community pool as well as the growth DAO, but like even on smaller projects, I think that that's important to incentivize. We just had a proposal go up today with Juno to liquid stake a bunch of Junos with ST Juno on for Yumi.
I
So that
saw
just
that.
came up today. So I'm on that multi sig as well. So pushing ahead, I think we need more liquidity. We've got all that money just sitting there, and it's like let's do something with it. And so I think that's important to do.
Yeah, I think in the future, I mean, obviously, the people that were here the last 2 years, they're not going to look at APRs the same way in the next bull market as we all looked at APRs in the last bull market. I think protocol owned liquidity is nice because sometimes there are tokens like Stargaze has all these tokens sitting in the community pool. They can't really spend them, but then they're paying incentives to Kajira, Osmosis for people to supply liquidity. You could eliminate those incentives. People can complain all they want, but they're just probably selling them anyway. Use some of the unspendable funds to scale back incentives or use the incentives, like you said, for stuff that's more of like an investment on the chain, like strategic spends, whether it be something like you were talking about, right? This mentoring
That's
program.
that's another thing in the mentorship program. We'll have bounties. We'll have you'll be able to earn. So like one of the ideas that I had was, I'll do say 6 8 week course. You come in once a week. We'll have like homework and those kind of things. You'll put 100 Juno in, and then if you don't finish the course, you lose that Juno. But if you finish the course, maybe you get 200 or 250 Juno back. So that way, there's actually an incentive to finish out these courses with not too much downside from that aspect. So we want to be able to do those things and fund little projects here and there as needed using the token of Juno.
Yeah, I mean, I've just being forced to do it because of COVID. I've made online, you know, curriculum for different courses. It takes a long time, and you have to constantly change it and make it tweak it, tweak it, tweak it. But then once it's pretty good, it scales tremendously. You could just, what's the difference if you run 10 people through your completed platform or 1,000? It doesn't really matter at that point. But it's a big upfront investment. I would say more so of time than even like money, because I would love to go to Accelerator DAO, get a grant, spend 4, 5, 6 months making something awesome, you know, for people that are coming in to use, but the first version's never good. Maybe like the fifth version's good. It's just like that time. You got to think in years and not months when you're building something like that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I'm interested in it, is because naturally I'm very lazy. So my thing is like I'm going to try to do it as right as I can the first time. And of course it's not going to be perfect, but just to build that out and to just have a starting point where maybe someone else has an idea that, oh, I can do this better, join into the elite society and hey, come help us with that and get some contributions for it. So I think that's important. And just having a wide range of people that want to teach or developers or all those things is really important.
Yeah, and with a lot of the apps that have deployed on the various chains, if they're open source anyway, maybe they could assist. Like, hey, here's how I made this contract for this particular app, whether it be Raccoon Bet, Gelato, whatever. That could be one of the videos inserted into the curriculum. Takes a little bit of time off of the quote unquote mentors who are going to be spending a lot of time. I think you could definitely make a pretty sweet hybrid course where a lot of the stuff is just generic, repurposed after several iterations. That becomes your textbook, let's say. Maybe some online modules people can go through self-paced without a teacher. But then I think the mentoring is very powerful, man. I think that could be you could, yes, the people have to be there at the same time, same place, same time. But I think you're getting 10 times the benefit as one of these typical Udemy, Coursera type things.
Yeah, and we think that, that's kind of like the selling point. Like just doing a teaching platform, you know, while it would be very generic and it would definitely solve a lot of current problems with COSMWASM, we need more than just solving it. We need to solve it and to scale it. And so that's what the mentorship comes into. And you get mentorship with a lot of top great people. We definitely want to add more onto the program. Currently it'll just be 5 of us as like the masters for the top thing, and then be able to mentor others directly and enable them to help mentor others that have problems as they're just coming in. So trying to actually scale this out for the interchain is what we're hoping to do.
Got it. Tank is bullish on his own project. That's good. It makes other people bullish
I am
sometimes.
very glad that Tank is bullish on his own project. I would not be very bullish on it if he was not.
And then here's top 5 comment of the day.
So this is okay. Just slap a wallet connect on the Khan Academy code. So here's the issue. There's not even there's no tutorials on how to even slap a wallet connect on it. Like that's the issue. Like we don't have any of that. You have to find a project, and most of the time, those projects that you do find, they aren't even open source. So then you can't even use their UI. So that's definitely an issue. And like one of the pain points that we want to solve is front end, how to connect a wallet, like simple, basic things that you would think most users assume that developers know. They don't know. They have no clue how to do it. And that's important to be able to write documentation on that as well as to mentor to them.
I think it would be cool to just have something like that set up, because let's fast forward to the next terrible bear market. You'll have people like me and these jokers in the chat right now with nothing better to do except maybe go through the course. It doesn't mean you need to be an expert on the other side of it, but for making content, I'm sure that would help me quite a bit, right? Doing my little Python courses, like I've never made a smart contract. I've made like little projects that are embedded into the course that I needed to do. And it was like a 5-week course. It wasn't like anything too fancy, but to have, I think the mentorship is a great pursuit, because think about the hardest things you've ever learned in your life, whether it be like a language, an instrument, or something like this. It's really hard to do it by yourself. You have to be like a 1 in 1,000 type learner to have that come to you doing a generic self-paced course that's not really customized to you.
Yeah, and that's how current COSMWASM is. There's no one to really help. The people that you do find are, again, super busy. And like I've had to do that. And it was a struggle of, okay, I want to do something basic. How do I send funds to a smart contract? It took me 2 weeks to figure that out. Like that should not be the case. I should be able to Google something and to get it. And like now that I understand that, I wrote that in my notes of we need to have documentation on that. Like that's an important thing that if you can't do, there's no reason to write a smart contract. So we've got to make sure that we have the best base foundation for developers, and to be able to build on that with other great minded people.
All right. I don't know anything else related to COSMWASM that I didn't ask that you'd like to get out there for people that are, maybe not developers, but just more, like I said, users, or maybe have coded in other languages that are interested in smart contracts or coming to Cosmos.
So my recommendation is, one, at least look into Rust. It is more difficult. There are confusing things. Specifically, if you're a developer, borrow checker is going to be confusing, as well as lifetimes. You won't be using lifetimes much in contracts, but the borrow checker will be confusing. But you'll quickly understand after it kind of clicks a little bit. Oh, this is why that is done, and you'll be able to quickly, begin to like master Rust. So I think that's just important to just get into it, begin to like learn the basics of how that works, and then you can scale out to begin to look at contracts, or and while you're building out just basic applications, think through things that you'd want to build on chain, just ideas that you've had, or a way that you think you could do something better compared to a current protocol. Write that out and then join into the Elite Society, and we'll be more than happy to assist you from idea to production in all of those issues that you're run into there.
Is there something on the Juno homepage for someone to easily get started who's maybe coming from Ethereum or Solana that's ready to take the plunge?
Currently, there is not. The new website will have this. Yes. So there will be more. I've got to focus more on the documentation side, but trying to get this next upgrade out. But yes, the new website will guide you as a Web 2 developer, or maybe someone that's already experienced in Web 3, and will take you through those two different paths depending on where you currently are at. Teach you Cosmos, we'll teach you COSMWASM, we'll teach you some basics of Rust. And if you don't know Rust or these other languages, we'll tell you where to go get those resources. Hey, complete this course, it's already done, and then come back to this point and begin work here.
And in your opinion, what's the best language to start with, even if you eventually want to move over to Rust?
The best language to start with is going to depend on what you really want to do, but there's two base paths. I would say if you just want to do something backend, like maybe you're not good at design or artwork or websites or things like that, you can focus on Python and do backend things. You can make simple scripts, automate some boring things. A good Udemy course is automate the boring stuff. It's like $10, and he'll take you through automating applications. That is super good. If you want to build websites out, you should learn JavaScript and or TypeScript. I would recommend TypeScript. It's a little bit easier to understand, but it's still, yeah, they're kind of together, and you can build out basic websites, and they'll give you a base understanding of, okay, here are how these languages work. Here's kind of the fundamentals. And then once you kind of get comfortable with that, you can then look into Rust and understand why it's different, and look into that.
Got it. All right. Well, I think this was definitely helpful for me, right? Rust, COSMWASM, our ecosystem should get a lot more attention, I think, compared to the others, right? Market caps and token prices aside. I don't know if it's that just Ethereum has been around longer, or Solana is just better at getting themselves into the mainstream. But I've always felt that Cosmos as a whole just has such a good narrative. And if they were a little bit more strategic at getting it out there, some of the, I won't say the issues would resolve, but there would be just more attention in the right places. I don't know if you think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, I think we need to do a better job of marketing for sure. That's been a lack thing. Like, we've got all this cool tech, and like, okay, that's great, but if no one knows what it is or even how to use it, because that's the thing. If we marketed to every single Web3 developer to this day, and they were all willing to switch over, maybe 1% would actually be able to switch over to actually use COSMWASM. And that's an issue. And that's something that should have already been solved, but it's not. So we're the ones that are going to have to solve that. And I do just want to add, Juno is going to be connecting over to the Kusama Polkadot ecosystem. That would not be possible without COSMWASM. So because of COSMWASM, the new client by Strangelove is possible. We can upload contracts and do IBC natively to the Polkadot ecosystem.
All right, so Juno is going to be that like olive branch to that ecosystem, which is that has the potential to become massive as well, right? Not just in the number of chains, but just the amount of attention that's paid to Polkadot compared to Cosmos. It's definitely, I mean, it's almost like Polkadot's mentioned in the same breath as Ethereum, and I feel like it's barely getting off the ground compared to what we've got over here.
And
What's
it's
the
exciting. Yeah, it's exciting to be able to have developers now understand, like, wallets are sticky, things like this. With IBC, it's now a permissionless bridge. And hey, we're using COSMWASM. You can come over here, build an application and interface with your application on Polkadot and things like that. So it's really exciting.
what exactly would Juno connect to in Polkadot?
So
Composable?
yeah, we're going to go through Composable to Kusama. That'll be on the Uni testnet, and we'll be using a custom WASM client, which will be built into IBC. As of now, I believe we will be the first people to do that. So let's say you have some tokens on Atom and you want to get that to Kusama, you have to go through Juno, through the WASM contract over to Composable Kusama, and then also the same way back. If you are on Kusama and you want to go to, say, Osmosis, you have to go through Juno. So Juno will be like that gateway of funds going through, kind of like what people wanted the hub to be.
All right. How is COSMWASM? This is my last question. How is COSMWASM involved in ICS, if at all?
I don't believe COSMWASM does anything with interchain security. Interchain security is kind of like its own thing, and you can build COSMWASM in that, but that's because interchain security is kind of like its own chain. So you could think of interchain security as just another chain that is forced to be run by validators. So if they can decide what they want to do with their chain, whether that has COSMWASM or not.
Got it. All right. And the hub has no COSMWASM.
Correct. It should, but it doesn't.
All right. Well, I really appreciate it, man. This is the second time we've been able to connect like this. I would love to just do a semi-regular Juno check-in, if you don't mind. And I know a lot of people would really like that as well. I think Reece is like the highlight of the Juno community calls. He gets all this information out, super efficient, super clear. And for people like me who barely understand the actual tech, I feel like it's good enough to get my understanding to where it needs to be. So I definitely appreciate it. I know other people do as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's important. It's important to, like, again, like, I'm trying to be as forward facing as possible with the community calls. Tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Central Time, I've got a developer and like validator call where I talk all the technicals on Juno. So, while this was meant to be more broad, I will talk all the specifics on what did we do? Why are we doing this? Why did we pivot? All of these things, and trying to just make sure that if the community has questions, that they can get answered. And number two, it's someone knowledgeable that is able to answer it. And if your idea is good enough, hey, we're willing to pivot. And so these are the things that I'm trying to do to make Juno a better place to build on, as well as a better place for developers.
All right. Last question. The guy, Finn, is here from the beginning and waits till we're about to end to ask his question. any thoughts on Alliance?
So the Alliance module is, I'm not going to say it's bad, but I think that chains that implement it are going to realize it's a mistake. They should not implement it, and they should instead use mesh security. Oh, what's mesh security? It's built on COSMWASM. So, we always go back to, COSMWASM and these features. So, this is important. With COSMWASM, it's going to be, composable on that aspect. And so I think that chains that incorporate it, that's great. You're a first adopter. I don't think that you're truly going to want it, because mesh security is going to be more versatile and expandable versus using a module from Terra.
Understood. Yeah, that's one. Alliance is one that I need to go into a little bit deeper. It's very interesting. Anytime you're getting multiple tokens used to reward for simple actions, it's like, well, where is all that coming from? How does that affect the chains? That's a good one to deep dive for me, I would say. All right, we'll end on this one. So, thanks again. I really appreciate it, man. And like I said, we'll do a check-in, like, even if it's monthly. I think people would definitely appreciate it. And Juno's not an app chain, lots of moving parts. There's probably going to be lots of news the next time we connect like this as well.
Yep, absolutely. That sounds good. Would love it.
All right.